So talking about Civil 3D 2016, we've got a handful of different categories that some of these new features fall into. One is about the user experience. Some of it is with data exchange, some improvements there with data shortcuts and Vault, as well as project management items and some more detailed design. They've given us some options to create more detailed design. And some new enhancements for production drafting. So let's talk through those in more detail. We'll spend some time talking through some graphics and slides I have here, and then I'll show you some of these items in Civil 3D. So the user experience, there is an updated user interface. It did change in 2015 as well. There's some tweaks to it again. The big thing is you kind of notice on the far right there, it's a kind of charcoal black interface. It's a dark interface. You can of course change it back to the light interface, but that is there. The DWG format, they've broken the tradition, the recent tradition of changing the DWG format every 3 years. That is not changing this year. It's going to continue on. And beyond that, so that's just the DWG format, but the Civil 3D format, compatibility is still there between Civil 3D 2013 all the way back and forth to 2016. So that means you could create something in 2016, go back and open it in 2013. Those of you who have done this, I will point out one catch to it. It's a significant catch, but it is what it is. It's as much compatibility as we can get. And that is that if you were to use a new feature or new component in one of these newer versions and then try to go back a version and you went to a version that didn't have that feature, those entities would then become proxy entities in the drawing and you wouldn't be able to use that. So I know that makes it difficult, sometimes defeats the purpose of moving to the new version if you don't have the backwards compatibility, but the alternative to that is getting new 2013, 14, 15 installs when a new version comes out, and that would be a installation nightmare for all of us out there. So anyway, just some words of wisdom on that. Coordination model, they've now allowed the import of Navisworks products. A lot of this is about construction collaboration. So we can take in Navisworks files, NWC or NWD files, and we'll get nice detailed graphics that are pretty well with performance too. And point cloud tool enhancements. We can now do a number of things. We can create, and this is different from the point cloud tool that's been in there since I believe it's 2011 or 2010. This is the new recap point cloud tools. Those were there last year, but there's some enhancements again, including creating a surface from a selection of point cloud data. We can trim down or filter down the amount of points showing based on a spacing. So it's a nice, it's not a percentage, but we can put in, eliminate points that are closer than 1 foot or 2 foot or half a foot. It's a nice way to filter down the data. We have cropping options for the point cloud information, and we also have some intelligence there that will eliminate vertical spikes such as trees or power poles or perhaps a bird that was caught in the point cloud. That I'm mentioning it here in more detail because I'm not going to have a chance to show that. Some of that doesn't display very well live over the presentation. So, but some nice enhancements there that definitely make it more worthwhile. So data exchange options. I might have misspoke a little bit. This isn't referring to data shortcuts. This is about exchange in a couple different formats. A big one is between InfraWorks and Civil 3D. We can now link directly to an InfraWorks model and bring that information in to Civil 3D. This is very powerful in that we can have it scan that InfraWorks model and convert design roads or surfaces or water features into direct Civil 3D entities, be they polylines or native alignments, profiles, surfaces, parcels, and so forth. So some really nice exchange data there as well. We can push that information back into InfraWorks. InfraWorks has a DWG import option, and when we import that, we can have options to select corridors or surfaces and which ones to bring in or which not to bring in once in InfraWorks, and we can perhaps do that for a visualization. A new road or a new design was created. You want to bring that into your InfraWorks model that you've created or that you just began with Model Builder. So those of you who aren't using InfraWorks much, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's it's interesting software. I know a lot of people see it and say, well, that's cool, that's great, but I don't have a need for it. And so it's some cutting edge stuff. It's putting software where it wasn't necessarily before, which is in conceptual design and perhaps visualization on lower scale projects. But the ease of use of these tools are pretty impressive. So I encourage you guys to check it out. We can import and export AutoCAD solids to IFC files. So this is a pretty standard industry file that we can push out. One example would be to take a Revit, or excuse me, a Civil 3D surface and push that out as an IFC file and to bring that right into Revit. We're actually doing some more additional testing on that because in the recent years we've suggested certain workflows between Revit and Civil 3D, and we believe there's now some enhancements to that with this IFC option. So like I said, we're testing on that. More information to come on that. Project management tools. There are some improvements to data shortcuts. This is a pretty nice one here, and I'm going to get a chance to show you this in the software. There's a couple things here. One is to be able to change an object's reference. So I can have, say, an existing surface, and if it's looking at one source file, if that existing surface is data shortcutted into a design file, I can then change the source drawing or what surface it's looking at. So perhaps if there's a new surface that's created, I can have that automatically pull in through that same link. The point of this is that everything that might be referencing that existing surface, you're not bringing in a separate new surface. Those links will be maintained. So I'm referring to pipe network reference surfaces or corridor target surfaces or grading object target surfaces. All that stuff will remain intact. Same thing goes for alignments and any kind of data shortcut. So there's a data shortcuts manager. That's what you see on the right side here. And I'll show you a few options in there. There's some enhancements with Autodesk Vault. I'm not sure how many of you guys are using this. It's just a small handful of our clients using it. There's a couple key features there that are really nice. One, I know this was a big catching point for one of our clients. They couldn't fetch Civil 3D data from a different project. So this might be you have two projects adjacent to one another, and you want to just bring in the existing surface from that previous year's project. You couldn't do that. You had to duplicate data. And what you can do now is you can go and point to that other project and bring in that surface or that alignment or whatever it might be. You couldn't do that in Vault before. You could with data shortcuts, but if you're working in Vault, you could not do that. And so that was a much needed feature, and it's now there. You can also make subfolders within your Civil 3D data, basically your data shortcuts folders. In Vault, you can now have subfolders. This is really helpful for perhaps different project phases or different stages to the project. So additional organization options there so that we don't simply see 20 different alignments in the same option there. So those of you who use Vault, that's something new to 2016, and it plays a big role in project management in Civil 3D. So under the category of detailed design, it creates Civil 3D surfaces from point cloud data. I mentioned that. This is a big enhancement, a big improvement on how it creates these surfaces. It's, like I said, a big improvement over the 2010, 2011 option, and definitely an improvement over what had come out with Recap point cloud integration last year. Subassembly loop support. I'm not going to have a chance to open Subassembly Composer and show you all this. But what this is about is, so Subassembly Composer allows you to build custom subassemblies for use in corridors in Civil 3D. And what you can do is take a couple, maybe it's 2 or 3 links that define perhaps a bench and then a downslope. And you can have those repeat over and over. So say you want, along the side of the road, you want any number of benches required to match that existing surface. So you might have, in some places with a small amount of fill, just 1 bench, and in other areas you might have 2 or 3 benches. You can get the subassembly to automatically add those in there instead of just a constant slope. You could have those benches put in there, and you wouldn't have to do separate subassemblies and separate corridor regions along the way there. So nice improvement for Subassembly Composer. Those of you who are using corridors extensively and have not used Subassembly Composer probably run into some limitations with those out-of-the-box subassemblies. Definitely encourage you to jump into Subassembly Composer. We can create AutoCAD solids now from Civil 3D objects. So this might be surfaces or pipe networks or pressure networks. AutoCAD solids are a very flexible item. They can come into Navisworks. They can come into all sorts of different applications. They can be used for visualization in some ways. For 3D printing, this is actually one of the motives for Autodesk putting it in there. You want to print a surface of a site, for example. It's hard to print a surface. We need to go down to some kind of datum. Well, you can display that and show that in Civil 3D, but you can't really get that into some usable format. Well, AutoCAD solids are very usable for 3D printing, for example. So we can extract a solid from our surface and tell it to go down 10 feet or to go down to a datum elevation of 800, for example. So extracting information from Civil 3D objects into more universal forms of AutoCAD solids. So nice helpful option there. Catchments are for defining watersheds in Civil 3D. A small tool that was added a few years back. They now have exclusionary catchments, which allow division of catchments and different options. So you can divide up a watershed into kind of sub-regions, but still have the overall watershed areas there. So some nice options, new improvements with catchments. Corridor targeting. Those of you familiar with corridor targeting, you can grab polylines through layers. So you might have, this is especially helpful with conditional subassemblies. It's helpful to grab, it might be 15, 20, or 30 polylines that are your target objects. You could only do that by polyline. Now you can have alignments on a given layer and select those alignments by layer. So those larger projects, even medium-sized projects where you've got complex corridor targeting going on, you can end up spending a lot of time assigning these target objects, and it can be quite error-prone and quite confusing. So the option to select alignments now by layer is a great enhancement. Production drafting, some small, much-needed improvements there. Crossing pipe labels, needed that for a while. This is in both profile view and in cross-section view. So we can have perhaps a sanitary line crossing a sewer line, and we have a profile along the sewer line. We want to not only see that crossing pipe of the sanitary line, but we also want to label the exact invert, or perhaps the outside top and bottom of pipe at that crossing location. We didn't have that option before. We do have that now. So much needed improvement. And it's also there in cross sections. So we can very easily label crossing pipes with nice label objects. And there's a ton of options you'll see if you jump into your label style composer a lot of options there for what you label, be it invert or crown or outside top or outside bottom of pipe at that crossing location. So some nice intelligence, good improvements. So let's jump into Civil 3D. I want to show you a few of these tools firsthand. And the first one I'll do is I'll just import an NWC file. So an NWC is from Navisworks. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab. It's going to go to the Open tab. No, I'm sorry. I know what I wanted to show you, the export option. It can go either way. So I can go to this drawing here and the export IFC, that's what I wanted to show you. We have export IFC in here that pushes it out. That can be used in many standard ways. The Navisworks model, that's the other option here. They've done some of this through the XREF window. So instead of going to the Insert tab, which are some of the options there, through the XREF window, if I open that up, we're going to see some new options here. So the two new ones here, the one is attached point cloud. Okay, I'm not going to go through that in detail, but this attached coordination model, this allows me to browse out to an NWD or an NWC file. If I were to bring in that NWD from Navisworks, I can now interface with that in Civil 3D. So I get similar insertion point and scale options as you do with any old XREF. So this is an NWC right out of Navisworks. In many ways, it's quite a bit like some AutoCAD solids. It's a little bit dark in color there, but you should be able to see some of those options coming through. So this is just about data exchange, many different ways to bring that information in. I want to show you some of those data shortcut improvements. So here's the scenario we have. We have a surface and one drawing here, and this is the extent of the surface. I have this surface then data shortcutted into this drawing where where my design is. And I have an increase in scope. I have an alignment here it's going to bump out into an additional area here, and I needed more topo data, and that data came in the form of another surface. We wanted to separate that out. Many different options here, but what we want is everything referencing that surface to update and maintain that reference. So in this case, it's a surface profile of that surface. I don't want to bring in a separate existing surface. I want to bring in, I want to take this data shortcut and have it look to a different set of source data. So here's the new surface. It has some new surface data over here. Here's the workflow. You make a data shortcut for the new surface. So I'll make a new one here. Make a new data shortcut called existing new, and now that shows up down there. Now I go back to my proposed drawing, and what I want is this existing surface reference. It's an EG reference right there. I want to change that to look to another drawing. So if I go to the Manage tab, we now have Manage Data Shortcuts. And when I open this up, I get a new window here. So my drawings are on the left, my drawing objects, and my data shortcuts are on the right. If I click on my drawing objects, that's my EG that's being referenced currently to the EG in the existing old drawing. Okay. If I simply click on existing new and I highlight both of those on each side, I have this little option in the middle here that says click the link, click to link the selected object to the selected shortcut. This will change the source data, and all the links to it will stay intact. So I highlight this, I click the link button, and right away you're going to see that surface data update over here. And of course, my surface profile changes with it. So that's just one example of it. As I said, targets, pipe network references, all that stuff will update from kind of repathing or changing where that source data is coming from. So really nice improvements there. A long time coming on some of those data shortcut improvements. Corridor solids from different objects. In this case, I have a surface here. Pushing this out to a corridor solid. Okay, this is right through the contextual ribbon. If I pick on a surface, this would be the same if I picked on a pipe network or something like that. But I have extract from surface. This used to say extract objects. And if I click on this, I now have some additional options. Question came through, why did the data shortcut name not update? And that's because of how the data shortcut is defined. Let me go back there, see if it'll push. Let's go to proposed. Data shortcuts can be defined by handle or by name or by both. If I synchronize this, yeah, so if I synchronize now, it's going to say update the reference name. I think we should see that then go to existing new. So just a separate click there and you can have that name, that new name push. Okay, so back in here, I pick on a surface. I have extract from surface. And I have extract solids from surface. So let me go ahead and finish this, and then we've got another question that came in. Here's my surface. I can define the vertical depth to it. I can give it a certain depth. I can go to a fixed elevation. Let's go to 1,000 feet, for example. Or I could go down to another surface. I can add this right to a new drawing or insert in the current drawing. Let's put it into a new drawing, create the solid. I'll go ahead and open that up and you'll see what we've created here. So as I said, this is helpful because AutoCAD solids are very universal. They can be used in many different applications, including just visualization within AutoCAD platforms themselves. So while that's running there, question came in, are templates set up in 2014 going to be able to be used in 2016 without incident? Yes, with a couple exceptions. If you're talking about taking your 2014 template and simply saving forward to 2016, yeah, that should work fine. But you, of course, won't have some of these new styles that come with like crossing pipe labels and things like that. So you would have to, of course, insert that stuff. But the template would be up converted. A side note to that, I see a lot of problems with migrating templates after a number of years have gone by. So a few years seem to be okay. If you've been migrating a template for 7, 8 years, I start to see problems. And when you do that, you have to rebuild the template. And I don't mean recreate all the styles from scratch. I mean use some of the tools on the Manage ribbon to import styles and settings, and then also use Design Center to bring in AutoCAD content. It's not too bad a process. It's maybe a half a day or a couple hours, depending on the complexity of your template, to migrate that. But I see corruption and problems starting to show up when you've migrated for too many years forward. Another thing to mention, migration. A lot of folks believe you should migrate only 1 year at a time. So in your cases, you're going from 14 to 16. I could probably do it in front of you right now and we'd have no problem going from 14 or 16, but there are mentionings of people recommending only 1 year at a time. So if you have 15, I'd say go to 15 and then save it, and then go to 16, save it there. So our solid is exported, and I can go ahead and open that. We'll just take a look at it. Any other general questions people have about 2016, feel free to send them in. We will have some time to address some of those today, or you can always submit them afterwards and I'll get back to you guys. So it's a pretty large surface. Come in here, we'll zoom extents. See if we can look at this guy in Object Viewer. We can see that depth there. Might be pushing a little bit. Anyway, it gives you an AutoCAD solid. So another thing I wanted to show you is the alignments by layer option. Pretty handy. And again, it's about needing to select multiple target objects. It's great when you have polylines, but it was difficult when you only had alignments. There's that surface. See if we can look at it, and then I'll jump into another drawing here. A little tough to see there, but some thickness to my surface, thickness to the surface. I'd thrown an elevation, I think, the wrong direction. So we're seeing it extract from where the surface was up to 1,000 feet. So, but anyway, you get the idea there. You could have it push all the way down to 0 or some kind of datum that works for visualization. All right, let's close out of that. Let me show you the corridor targets using alignments by layer. So in here, I simply have a corridor right here, and I have an offset alignment defined. And this offset alignment is sitting on the C row dash left layer. This is just one alignment, but it could be many different alignments. I know some of our WISDOT consultants out there, corridor target objects need to always be alignments. There's many good reasons for that, but it makes target selection difficult sometimes. With this option, this is now considerably easier. So I'll go to Edit Targets, and if I'm going to go in, if I go in here to the left side, I assign a target to this. It's right there, but this new button we have is Select by Layer. So if I click this, it's going to scan the drawing for every layer that has an alignment on it. And it tells me how many entities would be there. So you might have 15, 20 different entities representing different portions of the road. Like I said, it's great for use in conditionals if you're having to use alignments for those. Alignments are great. They're still 2D geometry, but they can be data shortcutted. So that stuff can be pushed around all over the place to different drawings. So good reasons to be using alignments for all of your target objects. So if I hit OK, I can now add that to the list and everything would update. So new enhancements there, definitely nice features. Let's look at some of these pipe labels. So I've got an alignment right here, and then I've got some sanitary that's kind of jogging across it here. And we want to see some of these crossing pipes in here. Different ways we would push this in here depends on the project. We might just project it to centerline. In other cases, we might want to just see the crossing of it there. And we might show a profile independently of the sanitary line. Different organizations, cities, municipalities have different rules on that. But so what we're going to do, we've got a profile view over here, and we're going to project these pipes and these structures to profile view. So one of the best ways to do this is you grab the pipe and the structure, you do select similar, we have draw parts in profile, and it prompts me to go select a profile view. I can pick this, and now everything comes in there. But this is now seeing pipes coming in and out of the page here. So a standard feature we have to do here to see just crossings is to go into the profile view. And since none of those structures are on the alignment, we're just going to turn the structures off. But the pipes, what we need to do is what's called a style override. So I can come in here and pick all of these pipes, and if I simply set the style to pipe crossing sanitary, this will be an override only in this profile view. So the point of this is that it doesn't do anything to the pipes and structures in plan view, but only overrides them in profile view. And what we get then are just the crossings right there. Okay, so that feature was always there. You take it one step further, you want to label that exact invert perhaps right there. This is where the new 2016 feature comes into play. So if I go to add pipe network labels, I have add pipe network, and now instead of just entire network plan and profile or single part plan and profile, I also have section. So let's do single part profile, because we're in a profile, and then I have crossing pipe label style. So this is what's new for the profile views. So I can change or leave that as is. I click add, come out here and pick on that. Okay, now I have it defaulting to a pipe label style. I definitely don't want to see that, but what I do want to see is, of course, invert of that pipe right there. So I can click add on a few other of these, a few other ones here. And labels just that crossing. So let me just jump into this label style once. If I jump into here, go into the text component editor, we're going to see a whole set of new variables up here, crossing pipe, and all the different things I can label. So station, crown, center, invert, outside, bottom of pipe, and so forth. All kinds of options there. And then all I've done is just some rotation and offset options to get that to label accordingly. So much needed feature right there. So let me show you it in cross-section as well. I have a sample line right here. Click on that sample line, go to Create Section View. And I'm going to make sure that my sanitary pipe network is turned on in this cross-section. So I'll go ahead and create a cross-section view. Zoom in here. Turn my drawing scale down a little bit. And there's that crossing pipe. Okay, that option was there before. What's new now is if I go back to that add pipe network labels, it's a little strange how this works. I can't simply pick on this and then go to add labels. I need to go through here. I'm sorry, this single button will do it, but what it does is it defaults to the default style that's selected. So if you want to be choosing the label style you want, you have to go back to annotate and then add labels and pipe network, add pipe network labels. Then we get the option to go to entire network section or single part section. So my default one is that label style. So I'd get the same option if I came through here to label that. So when it's labeling invert, again, I've got options for top of pipe, crown, whatever utility type it is and whatever you need to label. That stuff will come in real nicely. Another little enhancement is the ability to take cross-section views. Instead of having left, or instead of it always reading down station, you can have it look up station. So what I mean is we want the negative offsets to the right side. So if I go into my section view style, similar to profile view styles, on the graph tab, you had reading from high to low station or low to high station or left to right, right to left. They've now added that in here so that it reads right to left. If I hit OK, that'll flip this way, and now I have my negative or my left offsets to this side of the section view. So HEC-RAS cross sections, number of applications for that. I know typically standard cross sections you're looking down station, but definitely reasons for needing to be looking the other direction on the alignment. So that's a lot of what I wanted to show you today. Just kind of in summary, some of the new enhancements in there. The coordination model from Navisworks, the point cloud tool enhancements. I didn't want to show you that today because it's to really show them. It's taking time to wait for the point cloud to build and the surface to build, and it's a lot of data getting pushed around. The data exchange between Civil 3D and InfraWorks. I believe in our InfraWorks new features, we're going to have more on that. That's some really impressive stuff there, but again, it's a lot of data pushing back and forth, and it takes a few minutes here and there, and it's a little slow to demonstrate, but some very cool tools there. The IFC files, standard files that can be pushed in and out of Civil 3D. The data shortcut management tools, I think that's really a big one for people, especially with larger projects that are spanning perhaps a couple years. I've talked with a number of clients who have large 40, 50 mile an hour, 40, 50 mile projects that are spanning over 5, 6 years, and how do you break that stuff up? And then of course, how do you link to data from previous projects or previous phases? That data shortcut management tool is really nice there. And then of those who are using Vault, a nice new feature there to allow you to go and grab data from a different Vault project, as well as creating Civil 3D data subfolders. Some more detailed design options, as we had mentioned, creating Civil 3D surfaces from point clouds, the subassembly loop support, really kind of opens the doors even more so than Subassembly Composer already did with that loop support. Creating AutoCAD solids from pretty much all the major Civil 3D objects. It's really nice for visualization or quantification in Navisworks, any number of things. Exclusionary catchments, that makes them quite a bit more powerful. They were decent tools, but frankly, I didn't see a lot of people using them. This should help things a little bit, make them a little bit more user-friendly. And that targeting by layer for alignments, nice improvement there. And finally, some of our drafting improvements, pretty much the crossing pipe labels. And that's not just for pipe networks, it's also pressure networks. So all those enhancements are there for both pipe and pressure networks in section views as well as profile views.